This is the video to help you make Florie. Just showing you the different sections there. That's the strap, that's the two tabs. You're going to cut those in half eventually. And when you make that up, you just fold the ends over, the short ends by 1/4 of an inch, and then fold in half lengthwise and fold again, like you normally would with a 1-inch strap. I've made up the small pocket flap and I've made the large pocket flap, but they're pretty standard, right sides together, sew, turn through, press, top stitch, and of course that's all in the pattern. This is just a visual to help you, and also to let you know that that's the lining there with the H250, and you've got the other side, the front side, with the H640, the outer side that gives that lovely padded feel. Now of course you could put a slightly heavier weight interfacing in there if you want to. My case is quite soft. The original one that I made had 2 layers of H250 to make it a little bit stiffer, but all of these things are very optional to you. Then this is the pocket of the large pouch, and again the lining and the outer are the same, where you've got the H250 on the lining and you've got the H640 on the outer. And you'll see as we go along, all of that is the same. It just works really well. And it's not too stiff and padded, it's just right. And you can see on the outer one there, I've already put my poppers on, and we go through that as we go along. The long zip, this is a commercially bought zip, so it means I can fold the ends over nicely, pop them into my pouch, and I've no fear of the zip slider coming off. This is the front pocket to the small pouch. Again, all the pieces are padded exactly the same. It shows you how that's going to be put together. It's a lovely, lovely, nice Sunday afternoon project, and also really useful. So you'll see shortly how we start to actually create this and put it together. And I go through each thing step by step. Now with that tab there, you can see I've already put the poppers on just to save a little bit of time. And all we do with that is you start stitching in the centre, so your stitches, your threads aren't showing, and then all you're going to do is cut it in half, and that creates the 2 tabs. It's just a quick, easy way of creating the 2 tabs that you need. And like I say, you can see that I'm pointing to where I started stitching. It just means that you haven't got any loose threads where you're going to see them, so it just makes a neater job. Nice little bit of top stitching on there just to finish it off, neaten it. I can't highly recommend ironing and pressing each stage of this. Often when you're demonstrating, you can't do that. It's a time waster. But I want you to do it, please. So just fold the tab in half and then just cut through the middle. Just makes it easier. And then you're going to place those onto the pocket when you've completed that. And in the pattern it tells you how the tabs should be placed, that the distance between the 2, finding the centre of the edge of the whole pocket once it's made. So with the actual pocket of the pouch, the smaller pouch, you're just putting right sides together and just pin those just to hold them, and you're just going to stitch right across that top seam. That's the only thing you're going to do, just stitch across that top short edge. Like I say, it's a nice easy make. I've got my walking foot on there because we've got lots of layers, so it's always nice to use your walking foot. It keeps everything working together, all the fabric layers working together rather than fighting each other. It does make a lot of difference, actually. So a nice stitch length of 2.5, pretty normal, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Open it up, and then you're going to top stitch. But the best thing to do with any of these sort of seams is to press it first. So that's what we'll do. Open up that seam. It's almost like you want to see the stitches, and that way you don't get any pleats or tucks. Fold it over, press it again, and then we can top stitch along that edge. And top stitching, you might want to top stitch at a stitch length of 3. Don't worry about the folded edges on the other ends. You don't need to fold those in just yet. I was a little bit ahead of the game there. So just ignore the folded parts. So now this is the lining of our small pouch. That's the outer I'm holding there. So we're putting our pocket onto the lining side, which has the H250. So here you can see what that looks like. And I've used the same fabric in my demonstration, so it's pretty obvious where all these bits go, which is quite nice. So just place your pocket onto your lining, getting those bottom edges straight and parallel to each other. And then we're ready to place the tabs on. So just make sure all those raw edges are sitting nicely. Again, don't worry about that folded end. As I say, I got a bit ahead of myself. So with your tabs, in the pattern it tells you the distance between the tabs. So you need to find the centre of your lining, really. It's the centre of the whole piece, not just the pocket. So you find the centre of that and mark it. Pop a little pin in if you want to. And then in the pattern it tells you the distance to measure from that centre piece. Just put a little mark in there, or a pin, whatever it takes. Whatever's handy for you. And the tab goes in the centre of that mark, or rather the centre of the tab is centrally placed on that mark. And if you do the same on the large outer pocket, it all works fine. So the centre of the tab to the mark. And just make sure you've got those tabs sitting the right way, so when they do fold out, they're going to sit correctly for clipping onto the back of your project. So if you notice on mine, I've got the popper button facing up. So that's how you'd need to put them. But double check it just to make sure. It's one of those things, once you've stitched it in, it's a nuisance to unpick it if you haven't got it quite right. So it's just a case of basting that all together, and we can put the pocket on at the same time, the pocket flap, I should say, on at the same time. And you'll notice I haven't put the other half of the popper onto the pocket because I can wait until the whole thing is made up. So you're just finding the centre of your pocket flap. You can find the centre of your short edge of the lining and place those two together. And again, the pocket flap is made very easily, right sides together, 1/4 inch seam around the curved edge only, turn through, press, top stitch, and then make sure you've top stitched all the way along that straight edge as well. It just keeps everything neat. So place it centrally. Try to make sure that your pocket is sitting nice and straight, that it hasn't moved, because we're going to stitch all of that down. We're going to baste it so it holds it all together as one piece. And because it's basting, you can keep your stitch length on 3. And you're basting about 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge. That way, when you stitch the outer on, you don't see that stitching. Okay, so we're coming down that side where the tabs are. Just get your stiletto or your seam ripper, something so your fingers aren't in the way of your needle, and just hold that tab in place while it goes underneath the foot of your walking foot. It just makes a huge difference holding all those layers together, keeping everything in place, and keeps your fingers out of the way. So we'll just stitch all the way around just to baste it together. So again, we're still at 1/8 of an inch. So all those raw edges are now sitting on top of each other. Make sure everything's straight, nothing has moved, it's all sitting nice. You might want to pin it. Use clips because we've got lots of layers going on now. And then we can just go across the top of the pocket in a little while. So that's all basted in place. I'm happy with that. And the pocket flap is now attached. Again, as I say, it's all basted. And then you can just mark where the other popper goes. Just by, see, I'm pressing down. It kind of gives you a little mark where that popper should sit. It's a nice little tip. And now that looks really neat. So take the outer with the H640 on. If it's directional, do watch the direction of your fabric. And that's the piece, as I say, as I'm showing you, that goes on the back. And that's our turning gap. The whole of that bottom short end is our turning gap. Makes it super easy. So pop your outer and your main pocket piece together. So before we do that, we're going to turn over 1/4 inch, and do choose your end. You notice I swapped that over because this end was a little bit neater with my cutting of my H640, which means when I turn my 1/4 inch over, it's a nice neat 1/4 inch, and the wadding hasn't got in the way basically. And do be careful of that H640 because it will melt. But you can see it does a good enough crease. And on that bottom edge, you want to do exactly the same. You want to turn under 1/4 inch if you can. You could hand baste this and then iron it. If you find that, because there's lots of layers there, if you find that too difficult, then hand baste it. But the iron should be your best friend. Okay, so now we can put right sides together. So don't open those folds up that you've just pressed. You want to stitch with those folds in. So you start off with a folded end, if you like, and that's so much easier than trying to fold it afterwards. So use your clips or your pins to hold all your layers together. Again, the walking foot will really help stop the layers from shifting. Now you see how those 1/4 inch folds are being folded back again just to hold it there. We'll put a clip in. And as I say, that makes it so much easier when you come to top stitch that bottom closed. There we go, lovely job. So now we're going to stitch bottom left all the way round to bottom right. So make sure your stitch length on your machine is back to 2.5, 2.4, whatever your machine defaults to. We're not sewing curves, so it can stay at 2.5. So 1/4 inch seam allowance. And it really helps that the wadding and the stabiliser is all cut back by 1/4 inch. You're not getting so much bulk on your seams then. Remove your pins and clips as you go. And then all the way down to the bottom. So you're making a really nice, neat job of this pouch. And if you don't use it with your Florie, you don't join the two together, you keep it separate. In actual fact, it really makes a nice pouch on its own. It's the sort of thing that you can make for gifts. So you can see I'm using my stiletto again to hold those 1/4 inch folded seams in place, rather than getting my fingers in the way. So just clip the corners. You don't need to take a lot of fabric away because it is only a single layer of fabric. There's no wadding, no stabilisers. So again, you get a decent corner, a decent point. So push it out. Make sure you get a nice tool to push out those corners. I use my pokey tool, my wand. So you can see how the flap sits nice and neatly. So now all we need to do is, apart from giving it a jolly good press, really remember to press your projects. Can't stress that enough. I see so many beautiful projects and they haven't seen the bottom of an iron. Okay, so you just need to get those folded edges parallel. Put your clips on because you've got lots of layers, unless you've got some really strong pins. And we're going to top stitch about a 1/16 of an inch. Don't forget your fold over is only a 1/4 inch, so you can't go any wider than that. And because we've already turned those edges under when we stitched the pouch together, it should sit beautifully. Makes it so much easier. Sometimes we like things to be easier. Okay, so let's top stitch that, close the gap. Make sure that first point, if you like, is beautifully turned out, so it's a really nice sharp point. Use your stiletto, or I find sometimes a seam ripper holds it just as well, just so your fingers are out of the way. Holds all the layers in place. Once you come to that other end, the other corner if you like, then use your pokey tool to hold the seam. So you're pulling on the seam there to make sure it all lays flat. That also makes sure that the folded edges sit neatly, ready for stitching. Just a couple of little back stitches, nothing too much, otherwise it starts to look ugly. And then take it to your ironing board, take it to your ironing station. Get a damp cloth on it, or get the water in your iron and give it a good steam. It needs it. Cut all your threads, neaten it up, and there's your small pouch completed. We just need to put the popper in, and it's done. And there's lots of ways that you could use this, other than attaching it to the large pouch of Florie. Okay, so while we've got you on the side camera there, we can have a little look at the zip in a moment. This is our main front pocket, and as I said before, I've used the same fabrics as the one that was previously made. So again, all we're going to do is exactly the same as we did before with the other pocket. We're just going to stitch across that top edge. So once that top short edge is stitched, you're going to do the same as you did before. You're going to open it up and give it a press. Because, like I said before, it does make a huge difference. We're not top stitching this. On the other pocket, we top stitch straight away. With this one, we're not top stitching straight away. That comes in a little bit later. We need that seam to be nice and neat and open without the hindrance of top stitching. And there's a reason for that, of course. So just showing there the pocket, so you can see I've used the same fabrics to make it easier to understand which part I'm actually stitching together. So we just press that seam. And like I say, it's almost like you want to see the stitches, and that way you know you've got that seam really nicely open. And it's going to be straight. That's the main thing. It's going to be straight. Okay, and it makes a really nice, neat job. Just press that anyway, because it's like muscle memory, but it's ironing memory. It's telling our fabrics that's how we want them to end up. I'm just pointing out there, if we did top stitch now, it wouldn't give us such a good edge to put our zip in. The zip tab needs to go right up to the top of our seam. Not the zip tab, but the zip where we fold over. So I can have a look at that now. So this is just a regular zip. It's far, far longer than I would ever need. It's about 4 or 5 inches too long. But I do like always to have a zip that's too long. It gives me a lot of wriggle room. So with a commercially bought zip, you're going to get that metal stopper, and that will stop your zip from sliding off. If you use zip on a roll, you can still fold over the ends, but it does compromise your stitching a little bit because you've still got the zipper teeth there. You could remove some. You just want to make sure that your zip slider doesn't slide off. So you're folding the tape over to the wrong side. And then we're just going to stitch that. It's just like a basting, really. We just want to stitch it so it's out of the way. And do it at an angle, almost a 45-degree angle, just to get that tape ends out of the way. So it's not often I use a commercially bought zip. I do like the zip on a roll. But these are the sort of projects where it really comes in handy. So I'll fold it over the tape, just a few little stitches just to hold it in place. You can see what that looks like. It's about a 45-degree angle. So it keeps it all neat and away from the zipper teeth. Just do the other side. Trim everything as usual, keep everything as neat as you possibly can. Those sort of little jobs don't take a minute, and yet they make a huge difference to how your project looks. So now what we're going to do is place the zipper onto the lining part. So it's the part where that's got the H250. Before we do that, we've got to make sure that we put our strap on. So the strap, the measurement is in the pattern of how far down the strap needs to go. If it's any lower than that, the flap won't fit inside it. So it needs to be the measurement that I say. So I'll just baste that in place. Just hold it there. And it's deliberately too long, so it means that you can neaten it off. You're going to cut a little bit off the sides of this pocket anyway, eventually. So the strap is being attached to the front of the pocket, and the front pocket is the H640 side, not the lining. There's the lining I'm showing you there. So now you're going to put the zip right sides down onto the front of your pocket. You can see it's got the H640 there. So just make sure where the little metal bit is at the top of the zip, that goes as near to the seam, as you can see there, as you can get it. And then you're just going to pin it or clip it in place. So the zip is right sides down to the right side of your pocket front. So just to recap, this is the side with the H640 on. So this is the front. You can see that because of the strap. So we're just going to baste that in place. Now I have kept my walking foot on, but if you've got time, then you can put your zipper foot on. Okay. So once that's basted in place, just flip over the lining side. So you're making a zip sandwich. So just flip the lining half onto the front, so it's right sides together. And you're sandwiching that half of the zip in place. And this time you're going to try and get a little bit nearer to the zipper teeth. And of course, if you've put your zipper foot on, you'll easily achieve that. So try and stick to about 1/4 inch. You're going to stitch it again when you put the outer on, but this just gives you a nice neat finish to your zip. Trim a little bit of that way and not too much. You don't need to snip the zip yet. Leave the zip long. It keeps that zip slider out of the way. So just turn it through. So you've only stitched the top and the side where the zip is. We've not done anything else. So just get your pokey tool, whatever, not scissors, or anything that you use that's nice and blunt. Sometimes a large knitting needle is really good for that, but be careful. Make sure that strap is sitting straight. And then you're just going to top stitch. So if you remember, we pressed that seam. I'm just getting my strap out of the way to do this. So because you've already top stitched that, it already knows that that's where it's going to go, and you've got a lovely, lovely, neat pressed edge. So this is where you flip the strap over. So you've come to the corner. We're going to flip that strap across so it's sitting across the front of your pocket as you had it, as you pinned it before. And we're going to top stitch over that strap to hold it in place. Make sure it's straight. And then you're going to top stitch all the way down your zip. So it's lovely and neat. And as I say, don't cut that zip off just yet. You can see how lovely and neat that looks. Again, it needs a nice press. Okay, so you want the right side of your lining of your outer pocket facing you. Bring your zip up. I find it easier to do it up. And then with the right side of the lining facing you and the right side of the zip facing you, you're going to baste that in place just as you did before. So just pop your clips in, or pins, whatever you prefer to use. And because we haven't cut the end of that zip off, it gives us that flexibility of not having that zip slider there. And then we're just going to baste that down, really. So right from the top right down to the bottom, we're just going to baste that in place. Again, swap to your zipper foot. As I say, just for time's sake, I don't swap. I keep my walking foot on. But it does make a better job if you use your zipper foot. Don't be frightened of it. So because this is all open, so easy to sew. Forget it's a zip, just think you're putting a piece of binding on. Right down to the bottom. Lovely. So there's our pocket flap, so we can baste that in place. Now you don't need to baste the front pocket. It may look it in this photo here, but you don't need to baste that pocket in place. Keep it loose, just as it was when you finished stitching the zip on, because this pocket is going to move. So there we are, just as I say it. You'll see that the zip is now laying flat, and you'll see that your pocket is probably about 1/4 inch too wide now, and that's okay. And that's all down to putting the zip in and the seam allowances and all those things. So the zip is right side facing you. Your lining is right side facing you, and you're going to now trim your, well, you can trim your pocket later, but put your outer right sides down with that zip laying flat, and you will find, if you can see I've trimmed my zip now, you will find that you need to trim your pocket about 1/4 inch. Well, that's okay. You'll also notice that the zip is on the right side of my pouch, and the poppers, which you can put on now, are on the left hand side. So they're opposite sides. Refer to the pattern if you're not sure. So now you can see how that pocket is sitting a little bit further out than your fabrics. So work with the lining and the outer of your main pocket as your stitching guide, not the pocket, because the lining and the outer will sit perfectly on top of each other. So you just need to adjust the pocket. And that's all down to stitching the zip in and seam allowances and all that sort of thing. And sometimes that's down to how you've stitched it and how the zip has been placed in. But nothing is wrong. So we're going to leave a turning gap between the poppers. So the poppers have been placed on the back. If you're following the pattern, you will have seen how that works. So we're going to leave a gap between those two poppers. Don't leave a gap on the zip side. You'd have a right old struggle with all the layers and the zipper tape to try and make that super neat. And you can hand stitch the gap closed. I did that with my first Florie. This second Florie that I'm making up now, I use the machine. And I do prefer the hand stitching, I must admit. It made a better job of it. But whatever way you decide is fine. It's always the right way. So you're going all the way around, 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's nice having the wadding 1/4 inch smaller, because you just follow the line of the wadding really. Stitch length of 2.5. So I'm just showing you there how you can get that zip slider out of the way, because don't forget we've got to do that almost 3rd seam on the zip, and you still need to get that zip slider out of the way. Don't go whizzing past it. You might break a needle if you're too close to the zip slider. And then as you go past, you can pop your hand in there again and move the slider again. It's just the same as you would stitch any pouch. So you can see I'm just showing you that the zip is still laying flat. And we're just following it as if we were stitching a pouch together. Well, we are stitching a pouch together, but it's just a little bit different to what you'd normally do. It's a lovely project, really lovely project, and incredibly useful. I think you'll find lots of ways to use Florie, I really do. And the great thing about the patterns is that there's always something for somebody. The patterns are so different every month that maybe one month you think, oh, maybe that's not for me. But the next month, perfect for you. And Florie just might be that perfect project. There's a lot of cutting out to do. But once you've done all the cutting out and all of the adhering of the stabilisers and the wadding, it's a great project. So that's just snipping off that 1/4 inch. And if you make another one, I wouldn't alter the pattern by 1/4 inch of that pocket. I would leave it exactly as it is, just in case, because all of our seams can be different. Even if it's just a couple of millimetres, that could put it out. And a 1/4 inch seam allowance isn't much. So I would just leave it as it is. Now, because the pocket hasn't been basted, you've got to find the layers to turn through. Make sure you're turning through the right layers. So look, we're turning through this pouch. So now we need to press it. When we turn it through, you can see why I do go on a bit about pressing, because, you know, that's just been in the walls, that has. So get your lovely pokey tool again, nothing sharp. Get those corners poked out. And get it nice and those corners nice and sharp. That's the main thing for me. That's the finishing off, isn't it? And of course, don't forget you can open your zip, and I'll do that in a minute. That's what the zip's for, to help you with all sorts of things. So yeah, open the zip, Liz. So much easier. Spend a bit of time on this and get it so it's really looking really lovely. All of these things make a difference when in the future you're using it and you think, oh, wish I'd just spent a couple of more minutes on that. But we're always in a hurry, aren't we? So I'm just using my stiletto now to pull that corner out. Now don't be alarmed about doing this. You've just got to be really careful that you don't rip your fabric. So look at that, it needs a jolly good press. But what a lovely make that is. So now all you're going to do is fold all those under just by a 1/4 inch or so. Hand stitch it or top stitch it. As I say, I pop mine under the machine for this one. I hand stitched the first one. So you can see how that flap just fits nicely. Any higher, that strap, and it wouldn't have done. So just pop our poppers on. I don't think I squidged my popper enough on that top one. I did actually go back and squidge it again, and it was perfectly fine. Sometimes they work beautifully first time. The next time you need to give it a second squidge. So again, we've got that lovely opening there. I love how that works. So you can pop little projects in there nice and neatly. And if we look at the one that was made before, I used magnetic closures on that, and that works a treat as well. So it looks really neat with a press, and it's ready to go to your next workshop, or maybe it's something that you're just going to have next to you on the sofa to put your English paper piecing in or your embroidery, but you can get to everything because of that zip. Florie is a great project, and I really hope you enjoy making her, and I hope this video helps you.